Okay, great, perfect. So, hello everyone. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for the invitation, for this great opportunity to spread the word about activities of the Romanian Space Agency. Yes, I am. Currently I'm a senior policy officer with the Romanian Space Agency. I started myself as a liaison officer for critical infrastructure protection, and climbing up the ladder towards more policy-oriented stuff. And here today, I would like to speak just a little bit about the activities surrounding activities of space surveillance and tracking in Romania. We actually made a lot of efforts in the last years, and here I am today now just to try and highlight a little bit of our work. At the end of my presentation, there are my contact coordinates, so feel free to drop me an email or a phone or whatever feels easier for you if you have any questions or if you want to get in touch with our team. I should also say that I'm not a technical person per se, so if you have really technical questions, then you should send it over the email so that I can actually forward them to my technical team. This being said, here I am with a little bit of an overview, a little bit of the activities that the Romanian Space Agency is involved with, not only with regards to SST, but also SSA and also in general, very briefly. Then to say a little bit about the SST architecture, space surveillance and tracking architecture in Romania that we are currently building, that we have, and we also have in plan, and some conclusions and way forward. So about the Romanian Space Agency, it's a national space agency established in 1995, so it's quite old already. It is under the direct coordination of the Ministry of Digitalization, Research and Innovation. Also, the Space Agency is the main coordinator of space activities in Romania, and it's also financing agency for various programs related to aeronautics and security. It's also the coordinator of a couple of interministerial working groups. One is on security research, but there are others on critical infrastructures, on space situational awareness of GovSatcom, GNSS, and Galileo PRS. Also, it has one research center, which is conducting research in numerous areas, not only in SSA, SST. At the same time, it's actually the national agency that is a national representative to a couple of international intergovernmental organizations, such as the European Space Agency, that is also a member since 2011. To the European Union, to the EU SST partnership, EDA, COMPET, whatever others. We had the chairmanship of the UN COPUOS between 2020 and 2022. We are also representing Romania at NATO, at the International Academy for Astronautics, and to many other institutions that you can see on the screen. Current program, we are very involved in the USST partnership that has now 15 member states, and we participate into grants and 5 which are currently in progress of being assessed, and we hope for the best. During the Romanian presidency of the Council of the European Union in 2019, space has been selected as a priority for the presidency. And we signed the Artemis Accords on March 1st, 2022. So about the Romanian SST system, we have sensor networks that covers basically Europe, Central Eastern Europe, a little bit of Latin America, and the western part of Oceania and Australia. The 8 telescopes you can see listed in the picture, and we have one radar in development, which is actually very close to being finalized. And we still have 2 under development telescopes, NEMO 2 and NEMO 3 in South Korea, as I was saying, and in Mexico. Here we just wanted to share a little bit of our technical work and the background measurements. You can see on the pie charts how the number of measurements have been growing since 2020 in green, in 2021 in blue, and in yellow 2022. Of course, next year, if we're gonna be invited to speak, we will we will show you a different color for 2023, which is probably gonna be bigger. So we are participating with the telescopes I have listed in the slide beforehand. And you can see on the right-hand side from 2021 various measurements with particular telescopes, in blue Berthelot, in yellow Nemo T03, and so on and so forth. You can read it from the screen. So to say a little bit about our SST network, we have this Cluj optical sensors. And here in the picture, you can see a conjunction probability that has been measured between Cosmos 2543 and Cosmos 2535. And that has been a campaign in which Aroac sensor has been participated in 2020 under the USST consortium back then campaign. Here there is another picture, another observation made with the Berthelot sensor in 2021 with the sensor in the surveillance mode during the observation campaign in January 2021, as I was saying. And also they are also part of the USST consortium nowadays partnerships. In the picture, the two pictures now are depicting the NEMO system on the 20th of April, generated as a result of the Indian ASAT test in 2019. And again, they are part of the USST report. And here is the KR radar station, and we've listed a little bit about their technical capabilities. It has been pre-operational in October 2021, and actually it started being operational in March 2022. And currently it contributes to this sharing of observation, astronomical observation in the USST partnership mainly. Here in the picture, you can see the interior of like a little bit of the interior of our operational center for space surveillance and tracking, which is hosted within the Romanian Space Agency's buildings. And it is assigned to deal with sensor planning and tasking, data processing, cataloging, and one particularity is that it has expertise for the national entities responsible for the management of risk situations. It mainly has national funding, but also we have some bits from the USST partnership as well. We are currently developing a space object database, and we're trying to build up a national catalog. And here in the picture, you can see a little bit of the IT infrastructure, the IT architecture of our operational center, and how it fits the USST central database that is in Germany with the DLR, the German Space Agency. On the activities that are being undertaken in this operational center for space surveillance and tracking, there is, of course, services of collision avoidance. And you can see here some orbit determinations in their development, but you can see some measurements and some analysis of the Galileo 23 satellites and Ariane 44 LP rocket body in March 2021. Then we also, we are currently developing the reentry service. We are basically doing the reentry service for the Romanian entities, but we would like to have it as a backup to the European services provided by the USST partnership. But currently it's just for ourselves on a national level, and you can see in the picture some observations made in 2022, yes, 2022 for re-entry requests by the AROC T08 sensors. And for the new services that are under development, but we are thinking of course, cataloging, which I already mentioned, being in under development, radio frequency interference, of course, software for autonomous collision avoidance, and generally speaking, we aim towards maneuver detection on urban servicing and support mission and end of life. On the national or under the same operational center for space surveillance and tracking, we also run a couple of projects which definitely contributed to us being able to actually access softwares or working force or I don't know, research in general. So they also contributed a lot for the funding of the whole SSA activities under the Romanian Space Agency. And here I have listed the three of them, the main contracts, the main research contracts we have had in the past 3-4 years that were actually allowing us to develop this system architecture, and were allowing us to collaborate or to build some sort of protocols for collaboration within so many institutions in Romania, and to form up procedures and so on and so forth. For each of them, I actually listed the website. So if anybody is interested, of course, can drop me a line. But other than that, you can access the pages. Some of these projects are already in their very end phase, so you can actually read a lot about their results as well. So in conclusion, with regards to SSA in general and SST, Romania has a lot of work to do. We are actually trying, we're doing our best to be able to somehow build up a system and an architecture on a technical perspective, on an institutional level, on a legal level, that actually would enhance or will help the other countries in the burden sharing of the SST activities. But still, there is a lot of work to be done still, and we are getting there. So because we want to be seen as players in this international arena, we are trying to develop these SST capabilities as much as we can, being aligned with the international and European objectives. And so since 2018, Romania is a part of this USST partnership. Back then, it was consortium. And everything that we develop, how can I say this, in collaboration with our partners. On the coordination side, we are making many efforts on the internal arena to make the space community work together, which is not always very easy given the fact that the space situational awareness or the space domain is actually implies both civilian and military aspects. So sometimes data protection policies or security clearances or whatever other stuff are in contradiction to some commercially intentionalities. And as probably you know, because probably it happened all over the world, this is also happening in Romania. So this requires a lot of effort to be aligning on the national level, also on the international level, with all the partners that we have and all the strategic connections that we have. Also, we came up to the conclusions after being in this field since 2018. We came up to the conclusion that without transparency, we cannot build trust. So trust is actually the fundamental ingredient for this collaboration to work. And I think this is one aspect that is being emphasized in all international forums on community trust and transparency building measures, also the UN COPWAS, for instance. Um, the just because of the Romanian historical political history, recent or I don't know, since the fall of the Iron Curtain onwards, we did have a little bit of a communication problem between the governmental sector and the private sector. So this is something that is part of the work in progress, as I was mentioning before. On the research part, we have continuous involvement in we are trying to, of course, as everybody, to understand the space environment with new modeling capabilities, that is artificial intelligence, machine learning, all sort of autonomous softwares, which are actually could offer us a little bit more of what we know so far. And this being said, this is my presentation for today. I remain available if you have any questions or any sort of if you're interested in any sort of dialogue with myself or with the space agency in general. And this being said, thank you so much, Martinas, for allowing me to be here today. Martinas?
All right. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay. So thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you
It's
once
okay.
again for joining. So some questions that I have here from my side regarding again the presentation is
Sure.
maybe you can talk about more. Obviously, you mentioned technical questions, which I don't believe those will be technical questions. But let me ask you: so, how does Romania's space surveillance and tracking efforts support the broader goals of the space situation awareness and space debris mitigation? And maybe you can talk about and what impacts has Romania has in this field, specifically for debris mitigation.
Well, well, as being part of this European Union Space Surveillance and Tracking Partnership, is definitely one way in which Romania is involved on on a regional level, on European level. Then we have a strategic partnership with the United States of America, and we participate in the Global Sentinel, for instance, exercise, which happens every year. And to my knowledge, this is my first year when I participate. But to my knowledge, this is one global exercise in which countries have the opportunity to present their capabilities and to actually learn how to work together towards this burden sharing. That is a second aspect. Also, because I have mentioned the United States, and I have mentioned also in the presentation, Romania have signed the Artemis Accords. And so this is another way in which we want to get involved. And thirdly, I want to mention our work within the United Nations Office for the Outer Space Affairs. We are being very present and very active there. And again, as I mentioned in the presentation, Romania has had the chairmanship of the COPUOS between 2020 and 2022. It was a bit unfortunate because it was pandemic situation, and so it was less of a physical I don't know, constellations of actor and more of a virtual one, but still we got involved and we received the power, so to say, to actually make our voice heard, internationally speaking, and to try as much as we can to coordinate particular activities which eventually hopefully will somehow save the world one day.
Got it. And the question also that I have, which is similar to the previous one in a way. So, also, how do you see that Romania space surveillance and tracking capabilities are already either supporting or can support the development, and deploy new space technologies, let's say within Romania space sector?
Yeah, I didn't understand the question actually. Can you rephrase it a bit?
Sorry, so what again new developments in terms of new space technologies that are happening through
Okay.
space surveillance and tracking capabilities that you see currently taking place in Romania?
Okay, so as far as I know, I'm more into policy part, but as far as I know, there are a couple of teams which are very active, very young, young professionals, which are coming along with a lot of expertise in artificial intelligence, in machine learning, which mostly all of them are, yeah, I think most of them are actually based not in the state companies, but in private companies, and they are obviously feeding the system, the new space system, with their capabilities. In terms of what are these new technologies, I wouldn't be able to answer that. But obviously, many of them are based on artificial intelligence and machine learning. That's I know.
Mhm.
That's
Oh,
what I know.
okay, so and do you see any challenges or limitations again associated right now with the surveillance and tracking? And maybe we can talk about how Romania is addressing these challenges, if you see any challenges.
Well, there are a lot of challenges, and these are not the challenges which are belonging to a particular country, I think, because
Mhm. Yeah.
space is actually global commons. So, as I was saying, we are just trying to help to other, like help the international community to burden sharing. It's not that, how can I say, we can save the world, but us together as actors, of course, we can actually have a shared understanding of the threats in outer space, of the implications of what it means, for instance, new space, on the military operations, on the surveillance, on the military assets, for instance, in outer space. On the other hand, there are very interesting discussions which are happening at the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva on the on progressing towards common international understanding of what it means to have, as a country, a responsible behavior. So, responsible behavior in outer space would be definitely the responsibility of each of us, as countries, but also as companies, or even as individuals that have power over our political system in our countries. So, to my understanding, helping or being part of this international system that actually promotes the sustainability of outer space activities is fundamental. It's like a big net of support for a very constructive and very positive future for us all.
Mhm. Okay, and lastly, if you don't mind, I'll ask you a question. You mentioned policy and law, so anything regarding law. So what legal framework, and maybe if you know, depending on extent that you can talk about. So, what legal framework governs Romania's activities in space surveillance and tracking, and how does it comply with international space law? If you can comment on that.
As you know, Romania is part of the European Union, so whatever
Mm,
legislative framework is
I see.
given under the European Union, it also applies to Romania. That being said, I will talk about the national level legislation. We have, I think, in December or November last year, it was a Prime Minister decision which established the interinstitutional commission that actually is in charge of developing this national legislation in accordance to the um, all the provisions basically in international arena, which are stating the importance of safeguarding space infrastructures. So that is on one hand side. On the other hand side, we have laws which are referring to the management of risk from outer space. And on the third pillar, we have laws and institutions that are dealing with the protection of critical infrastructures. And in Romania, even strategies for that. And in Romania, space is considered being the 11th, if I'm not mistaken, the 11th element of critical infrastructure protection framework. And just within this last point that I made, the Romanian Space Agency is actually the responsible entity for ensuring the protection of the space assets. So that's on a very legislative, very broad legislative level. We also have in plan, we don't have it yet, we have in plan a space strategy that would actually emphasize several aspects, including space-based tracking or space security, or however you want to call it, space domain awareness. And something that I didn't mention, but thank you for the opportunity to mention it right now. We're also involved with the NATO Science and Technology Organization in several activities which are aiming at developing a resilience in outer space, or resilient operations, or understanding the complexity of the space environment. There are several different activities, but we are also participating in those ones.